chapter 1, which is life processes. Firstly, let's understand what is living. How do you tell an organism is living? By their growth, by their movement, breathing, all the process like digestion, excretions will be undergone by the organism, right? So all these things will be studied in detail in this chapter. Come, let's go. So the chapter we will be looking at is life processes. What do you mean by life processes? Process like digestion, excretion, absorption, transportation, all these processes are necessary for our living. That's why these processes are totally called as life processes. How do you tell an organism is living? By their growth, by their movement, breathing. So all these processes comes under life processes. First, let's learn about nutrition. What is nutrition? Transfer of a source of energy. This source of energy is nothing but food. How do we take food? For example, let's take tomato. We will pluck the tomato from the plant which is outside in the environment and we will take it into our body for getting energy, right? So transfer of a source of energy which is food from outside the body of the organism to the inside. This process is nutrition. It's very simple. Taking food to our body is nutrition. There are two types of nutrition, autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. What is autotrophic nutrition? Manufacture their own food. Let's take plants. Do plants buy food from the market? No. They will prepare their own food. They come under autotrophic nutrition. What are the necessary things for them to prepare the food? Carbon dioxide, water and sunlight. Carbon dioxide and water in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is nothing but the pigment which is present in the leaves. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants prepare food, right? So all these things come under autotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic nutrition is nothing but they prepare their own food. Carbon dioxide, water in presence of sunlight, in chlorophyll are necessary elements for the preparation of food or photosynthesis. Moving on to heterotrophic nutrition. What is heterotrophic nutrition? Organisms that cannot manufacture their own food, thus they depend on autotrophs. Let's take an example. Humans. Do we prepare our own food? Don't say cooking is preparing our own food. All the needed things that we get for cooking are prepared by the plants, right? So we depend on autotrophs, which is nothing but plants, for our food. Autotrophs can prepare their own food. Heterotrophs does not prepare their own food. They depend on autotrophs for the food. I hope you understood this concept. Come, let's move into the next concept. So, as I already told you, a source of energy from outside the body. A source of energy is nothing but the food from outside the body of an organism, which we call food, to the inside is called nutrition. Life on earth depends on carbon-based molecules. Most of the food that we take are carbon-based molecules. So most of these food sources are also carbon-based, which is important. Highlight in your book also. Our body undergoes various chemical reactions for each and every process. For example, our stomach has various enzymes which react to the food that we take to digest it. Most common chemical reactions are oxidizing and reducing reaction, which we have studied in chemistry chapter 1. Oxidizing reducing reactions are some of the most common chemical means to break down molecules, which is breaking down of food. For this, many organisms use oxygen sourced from the outside the body. Now let's learn about respiration. The process of acquiring oxygen from outside the body and to use it in the process of breakdown of food sources for cellular needs is what we call respiration. Let's understand this. You all have studied in your previous classes that we take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. We take in oxygen. This oxygen is helped for breaking down the food molecules and for cellular needs. From where do we acquire oxygen? Plants release oxygen and we release carbon dioxide, right? So we acquire oxygen from outside the body, which is outside environment, and we use it for breaking down the food and cellular needs. There are two types of respiration, aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is the process which occurs in the presence of oxygen. So oxygen is needed for aerobic respiration, whereas oxygen is not necessary for anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration takes place in humans and animals. Anaerobic respiration takes place in fungi and bacteria. We all know unicellular and multicellular organism, right? Unicellular organism, for example, let's take amoeba, whereas multicellular organism, example human. Have you ever observed amoeba? The entire surface of amoeba is in contact with the environment, which means the body parts of the amoeba is not so complex that they can easily take in and diffuse the waste materials outside very easily. Whereas in multicellular organisms like human, our body system is very complex. That is why diffusion process cannot be used for respiration in our body. Here they are given. In the case of single-celled organism, no specific organs for taking in food, exchange of gases or removal of waste may be needed because the entire surface of the organism is in direct contact with the environment. You may have already studied about nutrition in amoeba in your previous classes. So, what we have observed that amoeba is too small and they take in food from the outside. Pseudopodia cover the food and form a food vacuole. After taking the energy, they release the waste outside very easily. So, the entire surface of the amoeba is in direct contact with the environment. But what happens when the body size of an organism increases and the body design becomes more complex? Like humans, most of the organs are covered inside. All the processes cannot happen in the outside environment. In multicellular organisms, all the cells may not be in direct contact with the surroundings. Have you ever seen our cells? Can we see our cells? Most of the cells are inside our body, which cannot take oxygen directly from the environment. Thus, simple diffusion will not meet the requirement of all the cells. This is very important. They may ask you a question like why diffusion is insufficient in multicellular organisms. So you should be able to answer that. Body design of multicellular organisms is very complex, whereas in single-celled organisms, no specific organs for taking in food, exchange of gases or removal of waste may be needed. While in multicellular organism, all the cells may not be in direct contact with the environment. That is why diffusion will not meet the requirement of all the cells. This is the answer for this question. Note it down in your textbook. Now let's learn about transportation. How the energy from the food is obtained to all the organs in our body? Through transportation. Also, we take in oxygen. How all the cells in our body get the oxygen? By transportation. So, here they have given that since the food and oxygen are now taken up at one place in the body of the organisms, while all parts of the body need them, this situation creates a need for a transportation system for carrying food and oxygen from one place to another in the body. They need to carry the energy and oxygen to all parts of the body. So they undergo transportation process. After all these processes, some waste byproducts are released, which is not only useful but also harmful for our body. So they all need to be removed outside the body. This process is called excretion. The waste byproducts are harmful for our body. These waste byproducts are nothing but the waste after transportation process. Therefore, they are removed out of the body by excretion process. I hope you understood the basic life processes for our survival. Now let's learn deeply about these processes. How do living things get their food? The general requirement for energy and materials is common in all organisms, but it is fulfilled in different ways. Some organisms use simple food material obtained from inorganic sources in the form of carbon dioxide and water. Let's take plants. Plants obtain the raw materials like carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, everything from outside environment. Those are inorganic sources. These organisms, the autotrophs, for example plants, including green plants and some bacteria. Other organisms utilize complex substances. Let's take humans. For humans, it is very complex as compared to carbon dioxide and water plants need. Right? So these complex substances need to be digested into simpler ones for obtaining energy. What are the necessary things for breaking down these food? They are nothing but biocatalysts called enzymes. These enzymes are necessary for the breakdown of food in our body. Thus, the heterotroph's survival depends directly or indirectly on autotrophs. Heterotroph organisms include animals and fungi. Now let's learn clearly about autotrophic nutrition. The main autotroph that we can think of is plants. How plants prepare their own food? They prepare by photosynthesis process. Carbon and energy requirements of the autotrophic organism are fulfilled by photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis? It is the process by which autotrophs take in substances from the outside and convert them into stored form of energy. Let's take, so what are the raw materials for photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide, water, all the things in presence of sunlight in the chlorophyll prepare the food are necessary for photosynthesis. As I told you, this material is nothing but the food prepared by the plants. It is taken in the form of carbon dioxide and water are converted into carbohydrates in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. Carbon dioxide and water in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll are converted into carbohydrates. These carbohydrates are utilized for providing energy to the plant. So, the food that is prepared by the plants is carbohydrates. You obtain the energy from carbohydrates. The carbohydrates which are not used immediately are stored in the form of starch. Consider your mom preparing some curry. She will prepare in the morning. She will also use the same for lunch and dinner, right? So the same way, plants prepare carbohydrates. Plants prepare the food. Some they utilize at the time. Some they are stored for later use. So the stored food is nothing but starch. Food which are not used immediately by the plants are stored in the form of starch in the leaves, which serves as the internal energy reserve to be used as and when required by the plants. They use this starch for later use. Stored food in plants is starch. Stored food in animals is called glycogen. Note this carefully. The stored food in plants is starch, whereas the same stored food in animals is called as glycogen. Now we are moving into most important part of autotrophic nutrition. You have studied about photosynthesis. How do you represent the process? This equation represents the photosynthesis process. 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 12 molecules of water in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll are converted into glucose, oxygen and water. Carbon dioxide and water in presence of chlorophyll and sunlight are converted into glucose, oxygen and water. This equation is very important in board exam point of view. So, you need to memorize this equation thoroughly with the balancing. As I have already explained you, carbon dioxide and water are converted into carbohydrates by the plants. Some are used for the plant's growth, some are stored in the form of starch. As we all know, in photosynthesis process, light is absorbed. Light energy is nothing but the sunlight. So, during the process of photosynthesis, absorption of light energy by the chlorophyll. Chlorophyll in the leaves absorbs the sunlight for photosynthesis. They convert the light energy to chemical energy and splits the water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen. This light energy is converted into chemical energy. The water molecules that is broken down into hydrogen and oxygen. Now carbon dioxide is reduced to carbohydrates. These are the 3 main processes that happens during photosynthesis. Now let's look into activity 5.1. In this activity, they are asking us to take any plant with a pot. For example, let's take money plant. Keep the plant in the dark room for 3 days so that the starch in the plant get used up. The stored energy in the plant will get used up if there is no sunlight for them to perform photosynthesis, right? So they are asking us to keep the plant in the dark room for 3 days. Now keep the plant in sunlight for 6 hours. Pluck a leaf from the plant and dip the leaf in boiling water for few minutes. After that, now we need to take the leaf and put in the beaker that contains alcohol. Carefully place the above beaker in the water bath. Double boil the leaf with the test tube and heat till the alcohol begins to boil. What happens to the color of the leaf? What is the color of the solution? Leaf leaf loses green color and becomes colorless. After boiling the leaf with alcohol, the green color of the leaf get removed and leaf become colorless. Now dip the leaf in a dilute solution of iodine. Now they are asking us to dip the leaf in iodine solution. Take out the leaf and rinse off the iodine solution. Observe the color of the leaf and compare this with the tracing of the leaf done in the beginning. After keeping the plant in sunlight, you will mark the green parts of the leaf. After all this activity, the green parts of the leaf will turn blue. This shows that there is a presence of starch in the leaf. Only green parts of the leaf turn blue, therefore only green parts photosynthesize and produce starch. This shows that only the green parts of the leaf perform photosynthesis and they produce starch. Since the green color is because of chlorophyll, we can also say that only chlorophyll containing part of the leaf makes starch. All these green parts are nothing but presence of chlorophyll. Therefore, only chlorophyll can make starch. I hope you understood this activity. Now let's learn about stomata. You have already studied about stomata in your class 9th. I hope you remember the concepts. Stomata are nothing but tiny pores present in the leaves. The function of stomata is gaseous exchange. Massive amount of gases are exchanged in the stomatal pore only. They also exchange in root stem as well, but most of the gaseous exchange takes place in stomata. During the gaseous exchange, lot of water is released through the stomata. So, when the plant does not need carbon dioxide for gaseous exchange, this stomatal pore will get closed. Since large amount of water can also be lost through these stomata, the plant closes the pore when it does not need carbon dioxide. The plants need water, right? During the gaseous exchange, lot of water is also released. To prevent too much loss of water, the plant closes the pore when it does not need carbon dioxide anymore. The opening and closing of stomatal pore is the function of guard cell. The opening and closing of stomatal pore is the function of these two cells called guard cells. The guard cell perform the opening and closing function of stomata. The guard cells swell when water flows into them, causing the stomatal pore to open. So, when water comes to the guard cell swells and will make the stomatal pore to open. Similarly, when the water is released and no more carbon dioxide is needed, the guard cell shrinks and makes the stomatal pore to close. I hope you understood this concept. If you read this passage, you can clearly know the function of stomata. Come, let's look into the activity 5.2. In this activity, they are asking us to take 2 healthy potted plants. Keep them in a dark room for 3 days, same as this activity. They are asking us to keep both the plants in the dark room for 3 days. Now place each plant in a separate glass plates. They are asking us to place each plant in separate glass plates. Place the watch glass containing potassium hydroxide. This is the watch glass which contains potassium hydroxide by the side of one of the plant. Not in both the plants, they are asking us to keep only in one plant. The potassium hydroxide is used to absorb carbon dioxide. Remember, potassium hydroxide is used to absorb the carbon dioxide in the plant. Cover both plants with separate bell jars. This is the bell jar. They are asking us to cover both the plants with the bell jar and they are asking us to apply Vaseline in the below to make the setup airtight. Keep the plant in sunlight for about 2 hours. Pluck a leaf from each plant and check the presence of starch using iodine test. Iodine test is nothing but we have already performed in activity 5.1. They will ask us to dip the leaves in dilute iodine solution to check the presence of starch. Some part of the leaf turned blue. This shows that there is a presence of starch. They have asked us, do both the plants show the presence of same amount of starch? We have already noted that potassium hydroxide have the ability to absorb the carbon dioxide. When they absorb the carbon dioxide, the plants need energy, right? So it utilizes the stored starch. Whereas in this jar, there is no potassium hydroxide paste, so it has the energy already. So it does not need starch to form. Therefore, the leaf plucked from this plant turns blue-green, whereas In this plant, the stars are used up so that the leaf does not turn blue color when they are undergoing iodine test. I hope you understood this concept. A video clip is also attached with this video. Now we are going to learn about heterotrophic nutrition. There are some types of heterotrophic nutrition: holozoic nutrition, saprophytic organisms, parasitic organisms, symbiotic organisms. Holozoic nutrition is nothing but humans. We undergo various processes like digestion, absorption, assimilation, transportation, digestion. Therefore, holozoic organisms undergo these processes. Whereas in saprophytic organisms, they feed on dead or decaying matter. Let's take mushroom. Mushrooms grow on dead or decayed matter. Mushroom is an example of saprophytic organisms. Parasitic organism. Let's take lice. Lice are present in our hair. It does not harm us, but they still absorb the nutrition from our blood. Therefore, they are parasitic organisms. They live on host. Host is nothing but us. They live on host and absorb the nutrition. Symbiotic organism. In this process, both the organisms get benefited. Let's take fungi and algae. They all grow in the same place. They obtain nutrition in the same place. So both get benefited. That is example of symbiotic organism. Now we are moving into one of the most important topic in this lesson, which is nutrition in amoeba. This is amoeba and this is the food particle which is outside in the environment. Amoeba extends and outside the environment. The undigested material is moved to the surface of the cell and thrown out. I have explained you very clearly about the nutrition of amoeba. Come, let's look how it is given in our textbook. It moves towards the food particle. These two finger-like extensions are called pseudopodia. Amoeba takes in food using the pseudopodia. This pseudopodia covers the food and forms a food vacuole. In this food vacuole, the food is digested and the nutrition is absorbed by the amoeba. It fuses over the food particle, forming vacuole. After obtaining the nutrition, the waste material is thrown out. Amoeba takes in food using the temporary finger-like extensions of the cell surface, which fuses over the food particle, forming a food vacuole. These temporary finger-like extensions are pseudopodia, which forms food vacuole. Inside the food vacuole, complex substances are broken down into simpler ones. They break food and obtains nutrition, which then diffuses into the cytoplasm. The nutrition gets diffused in the cytoplasm. The remaining undigested material is moved to the surface of the cell and thrown out. When they ask you about the nutrition of amoeba, you need to draw the diagram and mention the parts, whereas in paramecium, the shape is fixed. So, the food is obtained only at some point. The food is moved to this spot through the movement of cilia, which cover the entire surface of the cell. Now we are going to learn about nutrition in human being. This is very important concept. You need to listen carefully to understand it very clearly. Nutrition in human beings. This is the digestive system. How do we take in food? We take in food through the mouth. In this mouth, some enzymes is secreted to make the movement of the food very easy. This enzyme is nothing but salivary amylase. This enzyme is secreted from the salivary gland in our mouth. Along with the saliva, the food moves towards the esophagus or food pipe. This movement is called peristaltic movement because the food that we take cannot be of same size. Sometimes it elongates, sometimes it shrinks. So the movement of the food is called peristaltic movement. After that, they enter the stomach. Various enzymes are secreted in the stomach. The enzymes are hydrochloric acid, pepsin and mucus. Hydrochloric acid is secreted in the stomach to activate the pepsin. Pepsin is nothing but the enzyme that breaks down protein. Pepsin breaks down protein. Hydrochloric acid is used to make this medium acidic and make the pepsin to activate. As we all know, hydrochloric is a strong acid. We will be learning about hydrochloric acid in the next chapter. It is very strong acid. When you put hydrochloric acid in your hands, it just breaks your hand. It is so powerful. So, hydrochloric acid is secreting in our stomach. It's just amazing. But how can our stomach resist hydrochloric acid? By the presence of mucus. Mucus protect the inner lining of the stomach when hydrochloric acid is secreted. So, the mucus, the third enzyme secreted in the stomach, is used to protect the inner lining. When it enters here, enzyme from liver and pancreas is secreted. The enzyme secreted in the liver is bile juice. They break down large fat globules into small fat globules. This process is emulsification. Bile juice performs the process called emulsification of fat. What is emulsification of fat? Breaking down large fat globules into smallest fat globules. After that, they get the enzymes from pancreas. The pancreatic enzymes are trypsin and lipase. Trypsin is used to digest the protein. After the pepsin, they break down protein, right? Break down protein into peptones, and when they enter, the trypsin from this pancreas will digest the protein completely. Lipase is used to digest the emulsified fat. What is emulsification? Breaking down large fat globules into small fat globules. Those small fat globules are digested completely by the lipase, which is produced by the pancreas. After that, they enter the small intestine. In the small intestine, there are finger-like projections called villi. You would have studied it already. Villi is nothing but they absorb the nutrition from the food that is entering and transport to all parts of the body. After that, the waste material does not have any healthy nutrition for our body are moved to the large intestine through ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and they finally enter the anus and released out of the body. This is how nutrition in human being takes place. I have mentioned the enzymes secreted in each part. In mouth, salivary amylase. In food pipe, no enzyme is secreted. The movement is peristaltic movement. In stomach, HCl, pepsin and mucus are secreted. HCl makes the medium acidic. Pepsin breaks the protein. Mucus protects the inner lining of the stomach. They get enzymes from liver. Liver secrete bile juice. Bile juice is used to emulsify fat. Emulsification is breaking down of large fat globules into small fat globules. When they enter here, pancreas secretes trypsin and lipase. Trypsin is used to digest protein. Lipase is used to digest the emulsified fat. Later they enter the small intestine. Finger-like projections called villi absorb the nutrition from the food and supply to all parts of the body through blood. The waste material is moved to large intestine and released out through the anus. Whatever information I have told you, all these things are mentioned here. If you read this page once, you can able to understand it very clearly. This is the digestive system that you need to draw when they asked in exam. Mention all the parts without fail. Also remember the enzymes that is secreted in each part. Now let's look into the in-text questions. The answer for all these questions is attached with the video. You can check it out to get the answers. I hope you like this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you for watching.